this is a introduction presentation about starting the outcome for the research project. Now that you've finished your work, what do you do next? The answer to your original question is what you need to come up with. Your outcome must answer your question, and you can present it in any way that suits your question and your audience, but it must be based on evidence of your research outcome. Now, the research outcome is the resolution of your research question through the presentation of key findings from the research. So you must use your key findings, and the resolution of those key findings helps you to produce your research outcome, essentially your question. It's worth 40% of your total grade. So you need to make sure that you do a good job on this particular task. How will you be assessed? There are three things: S1, synthesis; S2, substantiation; and S3 is expression. We'll talk in more detail about what each of those mean. Now, those come from the performance standards. You should be familiar with this SACE performance standard. Down the left-hand side, we have the A, B, C, D, E grades, and across the top for the A band, we're looking specifically at synthesis, S1, S2, and S3. They are the only things from this entire performance standard table that you are going to be assessed on for your outcome: S1, S2, and S3. So looking at those a bit closer, S1 is insightful synthesis of knowledge, skills, and ideas to produce a resolution to the research question. S2 is insightful and thorough substantiation of key findings relevant to your research outcome. And S3 is clear, coherent expression of ideas. So in a more general form, S1 is about making sure that you have got multiple sources, not just one. You need to have multiple sources that you have used that reflect the key finding that you have found. So not just one source, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5. S2 is about substantiation. So you're used to having substantiation. S2 is what we've been doing all your school life, is providing evidence. So you have a source for a particular piece of evidence. So this is normal research. This is about S2 is normal evidence. S1 is about synthesizing that knowledge, multiple sources. And S3 is really about reading, writing clearly, having a clear and coherent expression of your ideas. Now, keywords to understand. So let's just break this up. Synthesis. It's about putting all of your ideas together so that it makes sense for the reader. The information comes from a range of sources and shows your engagement with the topic. It is not just a collection of facts. So think about this being more like a jigsaw puzzle. This is synthesis. Imagine a jigsaw puzzle that did not have any synthesis. None of the pieces would fit together to form a whole. So synthesis is about picking, in this case, 4 different ideas that join together and are linked to each other well to form a whole. So, good example of synthesis. Now the next topic is, the next section is about S2, substantiation. Where did you get the ideas from? So you will have to show in-text referencing, refer to claims and statements, quotes, Maybe results from surveys and experiments. Maybe you might have some photographic evidence, some graphs, some tables, some feedback from experts or quotes from experts. All of this is substantiation. You must reference everything, uh, but if you make a statement, you must be able to back it up. Even this quote here, "In God we trust, all others must bring data." Famous quote, but in a research project, even quotes from the Bible need to be backed up. So here is the criteria for an A grade for the research outcome. S1, insightful synthesis. Not just synthesis, but insightful. S2, insightful and thorough substantiation. So that's more than one source, more than 5 sources. S3, clear and coherent expression of ideas. Remember with S2, we've always talked about the fact that people ask how many sources do I need? And the answer is as many as you need to answer your question. That is insightful and thorough. You will have hundreds perhaps. You need to include them all. The insightful synthesis is how well you have actually joined those things together to become a whole. Now representing this a different way, I've got an outcome map here. Just a different way of showing the same things. So the outcome map, research outcome is broken up into 3 areas, S1, S2, and S3. S1 is about synthesis, knowledge, skills, and ideas, and the production of the research outcome. All of that becomes S1. S2 is about substantiations, identifying examples and evidence. And S3 is about the expression of ideas, your essay structure, your paragraph structure, your vocabulary, and your writing style. All of those together, S1, S2, and S3 form synthesis, which is what you're being assessed on for your research outcome. Now these next slides break this up into a lot more detail. I'm not going to go through these word by word, but I'll just explain how they're set up. So this one looks at S1 to start off with. In the red you see the specific feature. An A-level descriptor is listed below, and what helpful detailed an explanation is required to achieve an A-level for S1, and it refers to S1 in the performance standard. Likewise, this is looking at S2. So S2 is substantiation, an A-level descriptor, and the help and explanation to help you achieve an A grade level in substantiation. And finally, in S3, S3 is again the same format, what the specific features are, an A-level descriptor, and the help and explanation to help you achieve an A level for expression of ideas. So what format does your outcome need to be in? You need to identify the audience for your outcome. Now you've already done that in your proposal, but if you wish to change it from what you have in your proposal, that is fine. The form and the language of your outcome must be appropriate to the intended audience. It can take a range of forms. It could be an essay, a report, a booklet, PowerPoint, brochure, a magazine, a news article. It could be some sort of artifact, a display, a multimedia presentation, or any combination of those. So you have a lot of options. It doesn't have to be a written report. If you have made something, then that's a product It belongs in the folio. It's not the outcome. So just because you made something, that isn't an outcome. It's a folio product. For the outcome, you need to explain the processes used and substantiate it. So key findings and substantiation, with which together form your product. Oops, I missed the slide. So here are some examples of a written report. You can see, and it's not designed to be large enough to read. It's really about the layout. So this is clearly a report format. There are tables and graphs in here that you would refer to. They provide good evidence and good substantiation. So make use of those. Here's another example of a written report. It has a title page, table of contents. You can see that there's got some images in here that have been referred to, a graph, and all of the references at the end. Another example here of a written report, again using tables and graphs. Another example of a written report. These are just pages selected out of a bigger report. Here there's a good graph that would be referred to in the text as evidence, but also some other images that would be referred to. They are all good things to include. This particular one was done as a video using a PowerPoint presentation. So it was quite a complex one about genetics, and they produced a lot of slides with text down the bottom, and then did a video of themselves producing that. So there was actually nothing written handed up. It was a video and a PowerPoint presentation that was submitted, and that was an A+ piece of work. This one is a magazine. So it's got the cover sheet, magazine cover. It's about fitness, and the sorts of pages that you would expect to see within a magazine. Some of them are just nothing more than an image or an advert type of page. Others have got a lot of text on them, some graphs and tables, and at the end, lots of references to support substantiation. Here's another example of a magazine format. The cover sheets, and then the front cover. This was essentially, it looks quite simple, but there's a lot of text on here. So front cover, the main question, key finding 1, key finding 2, key finding 3, and then the summary, conclusion, and then lots of references at the end. Don't go down the magazine path if you do not have experience or are confident in producing a magazine format. There's a lot more to producing a magazine than it looks. So if you don't have experience with producing a magazine, please speak to me before you try to go down that path. They can produce a good outcome though. What's the difference between RPA and RPB? RPA is 1500 words or 10 minutes, or a combination of the both, and RPB is 2000 words or 12 minutes, or a combination. So 500 words difference. RPB is a bit more detail required in there, but essentially a 500 word difference for the outcome. How do you get started? You might want to use a table similar to this. This table has been used by writing 3 key findings, and then some details about that key finding, and then for substantiation, listing the sources that are relevant for that particular bit of detail for that key finding. So that could be useful. Have a think about how to use that. There will be a template available if you want to use that. Before you start writing, think about who your audience is. Things like age, gender, race, religion, education, or social status. Your outcome is written for an audience. So if your audience is a group of academic professors, it needs to be written in a format that they would normally read. If your audience is teenagers, it needs to be in a format and a style that teenagers would normally look at and read. So audience is important. Get that right first. The form that it needs to take, it can be a range of different things, as we talked about before. Even a letter to the editor, PowerPoint presentations, a brochure. It doesn't have to be a report format. The structure. There is a very clear structure that we go through, and there'll be a template available that I highly recommend that you use. First up is the introduction. It introduces your research question. Then the body paragraphs, looking at key finding 1, key finding 2, key finding 3, and then your conclusion. It must summarize your key findings and explain how they fit together. This joins it all together, and it must answer your question. I recommend you use Teal for structure of paragraphs. If you're not familiar with that, please do some homework and speak to me about that. So you have an introduction, body section 1, 2, and 3, and conclusion. You may like to use a table like this to help you get some structure. There's a checklist available on Sector. I strongly recommend that you use this. In fact, they'll make this a checkpoint task. So you must complete this checklist and upload it with your work to make sure that you have covered everything. This includes also the naming standard for your document. There is very specific rules about how this is named. So there are key files on Sector. Make sure that you take advantage of these. So here's the format. Here is a screen capture of the file, and this is what the file is called on Sector. Examples for outcome intro PDF. This has got some, I think it's 3 examples of introductions, and the sections that are highlighted give you more detail. So have a look at Sector and see some examples of a well-written introduction. The next key file is the report checklist, so look for that. It's called Research Outcome Checklist. The next one is just some sentence starters. Some people find it really hard to start a good sentence, so there's a sentence starters PDF that you might find useful. Key files that also in Sector, some quick grammar tips. So things about when to use a colon, when to use commas, should be common sense for people, but many of you struggle with that, so get this right. Also make sure that you don't use contractions, so do not use don't, can't, won't, didn't. It's will not, did not, could not, would not. So yes, it adds to your word count, but it's formal style of writing. Other key files in the Sector are the templates. I really do want you to use these. You need to use them. So there is an RPA and an RPB template. It has got the cover sheet automatically done for you. It's got a header and footer already done for you. It's got the performance standards listed, and tells you exactly what you need to write in each section. It's all laid out. So please use the template to get started. Even if you are doing work on your, even if you're not doing a formal report, you might be doing a PowerPoint presentation or a brochure or something like that. You still use the template to start with, get your words down, and then you can copy and paste from the template into your other format, magazine, for example. use the template first, you still need to have all that stuff there. So make sure you do that. Of course, this presentation as a PowerPoint will be there, and also the video. So this video version will be available on Sector for you to watch multiple times and enjoy watching. Then there are the from the SACE board, some details about referencing. There's a student guide to referencing and some guidelines for referencing. They're short documents, worth a read, because you have to get your referencing right. You really do. Now, I strongly recommend you get Word to use Word to do all the hard work for you. Word will automatically create sources in Harvard format. You need to have that set up properly first. So it'll let you reuse that reference many times. It'll do in-text referencing correctly. Many people do not know how to do that. And even better, it will automatically create a complete reference list for you at the end and automatically keep it up to date. So this will save you hours. It really will, and provide a very professional reference list for your outcome with correct referencing throughout. I'll show you a demo of that in class. Here are the dates. So the outcome, you should be at this point here, week 1. Do the introduction and the key finding 1. And then I'll draft that and give that back to you. Then you'll be able to use that information to help you with your second key finding. Draft it, give it back to you. Key finding 3, then I'll do a complete draft of the whole lot, and week 5 you hand up your outcome complete. Following that, you can see where the evaluation is, and then your folio after that. So this is the timeline we'll be using for the rest of the year. Word count guide for the different sections. If you're doing RPB, I recommend you do a 200-word intro, roughly 500 words for each of your key findings and 300 words for your summary, and a little bit less for RPA. They're not strict. The total is strict. Do not go over that word count, and be as close as you can to it. Anything less and you're wasting words, anything more and the reader stops reading at that word count. So get that right. But if you want to have, say, 700 words in your key finding 2 and 300 words for your key finding 1, that's fine, if that works for you. So any questions? After reading this, listening to this, please send me any questions that you have, and I'll reply to your questions as soon as I can. So time to get into your research, into your outcome, using the research that hopefully you have already done. Please make sure that you have done your research, you keep to the timelines, and you seek help when required. This is the point now in the research project where it gets very fast. If you get behind, you will get left behind. You'll get overwhelmed with the load very quickly. But if you keep up to date, you'll be all over it. So good luck. Please help me, get me to help you if you need some support.